Have you ever wondered what makes Japanese DNA so unique? From their physical traits to genetic adaptations that trace back thousands of years, the Japanese hold a fascinating place in the story of human evolution. It's a genetic tapestry that weaves together ancient hunter-gatherers, rice-farming migrants, and even DNA from long-extinct humans like Neanderthals and Denisovans. But how did this extraordinary blend come to define one of the world's most distinct populations? Today, we'll uncover the secrets hidden within Japanese DNA, secrets that challenge long-held theories and open new windows into the past. Did you know, for instance, that nearly 9% of the genetic makeup of modern Japanese can be traced back to the Jomon people, an ancient population that lived in Japan over 12,000 years ago? Or that Japanese DNA contains unique traces of Denisovan ancestry, influencing traits like disease susceptibility and even physical height? These are just some of the remarkable discoveries scientists are piecing together. But this is about more than just ancient history. Modern genetic research is revealing how these unique markers affect everything from disease risks to drug responses, offering insights that could revolutionize medicine. It's a story of migration, adaptation, and survival, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. So, join us as we dive deep into the world of Japanese genetics. By the end of this journey, you'll not only understand why Japanese DNA is so unique but also gain a new appreciation for the intricate web that connects all of humanity. To understand why Japanese DNA is so unique, we need to start with the foundations of their genetic makeup. For decades, researchers believed in what's called the dual structure model. This theory proposed that modern Japanese people are primarily descendants of two groups: the Jomon, ancient hunter-gatherers who lived in Japan for thousands of years, and the Yayoi, rice-farming migrants who arrived around 2,300 years ago. Together, these two populations shaped the genetic foundation of modern Japanese people, or so scientists thought. But recent breakthroughs are painting a much more complex picture. The tripartite origin theory, first proposed in 2021, suggests that a third ancestral group also contributed to the genetic diversity of the Japanese people. This group, potentially linked to populations from Northeast Asia, may have migrated to Japan during the Kofun period, roughly 1,500 years ago. Their influence adds a fascinating layer to what was once thought to be a straightforward story. Genetic markers like mitochondrial DNA, Y-chromosomal DNA, and immunoglobulin G have been key to uncovering these ancestral connections. For instance, certain haplogroups found in modern Japanese populations are unique blends of lineages from both northern and southern Asia. This suggests waves of migration and intermingling, followed by long periods of geographic isolation that allowed distinct traits to develop. And it's not just migration that makes Japanese DNA stand out. The islands themselves played a major role in shaping their genetic identity. As Japan became more isolated from mainland Asia, its population developed genetic traits that are rarely found in other East Asian groups. This isolation, combined with environmental pressures like diet and climate, created a population that's as genetically distinct as it is culturally unique. What makes this story even more intriguing is how it reflects broader human history. The genetic makeup of the Japanese is a living record of migration, adaptation, and survival. Each ancestral group brought something different to the table, leaving behind markers that can still be traced in modern populations. Together, these influences form the genetic foundation that makes Japanese DNA so extraordinary. The story of Japanese DNA begins with the Jomon people, the first known inhabitants of the Japanese archipelago. The Jomon arrived during the Paleolithic period, over 12,000 years ago, and their genetic legacy still lingers in modern Japanese populations. These ancient hunter-gatherers lived a remarkably isolated existence, which allowed their genetic traits to develop in ways that make them truly unique. One of the most fascinating aspects of Jomon genetics is their distinct mitochondrial DNA, particularly haplogroups like M10, which are rarely found in other populations. This genetic signature ties the Jomon to northern Asia, particularly the Baikal region of Siberia. Some researchers believe this link suggests the Jomon's ancestors migrated from Siberia and settled in Japan during the last ice age, surviving in a land rich with natural resources. Physically, the Jomon people had traits that set them apart from modern Japanese. For example, skeletal evidence shows that they had cranial features more similar to ancient Siberians than to later East Asian populations. Their unique physical appearance is further reflected in the Ainu people, descendants of the Jomon who still live in Japan today, particularly in Hokkaido. The Ainu retained some of the Jomon's genetic markers, making them living links to this ancient population. What's truly remarkable is that the Jomon contributed about 9 to 13% of the genetic makeup of modern mainland Japanese. But in Okinawa, where geographic isolation was even greater, Jomon ancestry rises to as much as 28.5%. This high percentage has influenced not only the physical traits of Okinawans but also their cultural practices, which have strong ties to the Jomon era. Despite their ancient origins, the Jomon weren't entirely isolated from the rest of the world. Recent studies suggest they interacted with populations as far south as Taiwan, sharing both cultural and genetic exchanges. However, their distinct genetic profile remained largely intact until the arrival of the Yayoi migrants thousands of years later. The Jomon people's resilience and adaptability allowed them to thrive in an environment that many would have found inhospitable. Their DNA tells a story of survival against the odds, laying the foundation for the genetic diversity we see in Japan today. Without the Jomon, the unique genetic identity of the Japanese people wouldn't exist. Around 2,300 years ago, a new wave of people arrived in Japan, forever altering the genetic landscape of the archipelago. These were the Yayoi people, rice-farming migrants believed to have originated from regions in Northeast Asia, such as the Korean Peninsula and the Yangtze River Basin in China. Their arrival marked a significant cultural and genetic turning point as they brought advanced agricultural practices, metalworking, and new technologies to Japan. Unlike the Jomon, who lived as hunter-gatherers, the Yayoi introduced wet rice cultivation, transforming Japan's society and economy. This new way of life also led to significant population growth, as communities began to settle in permanent farming villages. But the impact of the Yayoi wasn't just cultural, it was deeply genetic. The Yayoi carried with them genetic markers that differ from those of the Jomon, including haplogroups associated with East Asian populations, like O47Z. Their DNA shows strong ties to modern Koreans and Northern Han Chinese, suggesting a shared ancestry with these groups. However, as the Yayoi intermingled with the Jomon, a unique blend of genetic traits emerged, forming the foundation of the modern Japanese genome. Interestingly, the degree of Yayoi influence varies across Japan. In mainland regions like Honshu, the Yayoi contributed significantly to the genetic makeup, while in more isolated areas like Okinawa and Hokkaido, the Jomon lineage remained dominant. This geographic variation is a testament to how migration patterns shaped the diversity of Japan's population. One of the most compelling aspects of Yayoi genetics is their potential connection to other ancient populations in East Asia. Some studies suggest that the Yayoi may have shared ancestry with groups from the Yangtze River Basin, where early rice farming originated. This connection hints at a complex web of migration and cultural exchange that spanned across Asia thousands of years ago. The Yayoi migration didn't just bring new technologies, it also brought new challenges. As the Yayoi settled in Japan, they had to adapt to an environment that was vastly different from the regions they had left behind. This adaptation is evident in the genetic traits they passed on, which reflect a blend of Northern Asian and local influences. In many ways, the Yayoi were the bridge between ancient and modern Japan. Their arrival marked the beginning of a transformative era, one that blended the old with the new and set the stage for the development of a unique genetic and cultural identity. Without the Yayoi, the story of Japanese DNA, and the story of Japan itself, would look very different. For decades, the genetic story of the Japanese people revolved around the Jomon and Yayoi. But recent discoveries have uncovered a third ancestral group, challenging long-held beliefs about the origins of Japanese DNA. This group, identified through advanced genome sequencing, is thought to have ties to Northeast Asia, possibly linked to populations that existed during the Kofun period around 1,500 years ago. This so-called third strand was first proposed in 2021 as part of the tripartite origin theory. Researchers suggest that this group may have entered Japan during the Kofun period, a time of cultural and political transformation. Unlike the Jomon and Yayoi, this group brought influences that closely aligned with Korea and China, contributing new genetic and cultural elements to the population. Their arrival coincided with a shift in Japanese society, marked by the rise of powerful clans and the adoption of Chinese-style governance. Genetically, this group shares characteristics with populations from Northeast Asia, Studies suggest a strong overlap with ancient Korean populations from the Three Kingdoms period, as well as some genetic similarities to Northern Han Chinese. These findings have led scientists to theorize that the third ancestral group may have been part of broader migratory patterns that connected Korea, China, and Japan during this era. However, not all researchers agree with the idea of a distinct third strand. Some argue that the genetic differences attributed to this group may instead reflect variation within the Yayoi population or even later migrations from the Korean peninsula. The overlap between Yayoi and Kofun DNA makes it challenging to draw clear distinctions, fueling ongoing debates among geneticists. Despite these debates, the evidence for a third ancestral group continues to grow. This group's influence appears to be strongest in central and western Japan, particularly in regions associated with the Kofun period. For example, genetic studies show that people from areas like Kinki and Shikoku have higher proportions of this third ancestral component, compared to populations in Okinawa or Hokkaido. What makes this discovery so compelling is how it reshapes our understanding of Japanese history. Rather than being a straightforward blend of two groups, Japanese DNA now tells a more intricate story of migration, interaction, and adaptation. The introduction of this third group adds depth to the genetic and cultural tapestry of Japan, revealing a history that's as dynamic as the people themselves. As scientists continue to explore the genetic legacy of this third strand, we may uncover even more surprises about how the Japanese population came to be. This discovery is a reminder that the story of human migration is rarely simple, and that each new finding brings us closer to understanding our shared past. One of the most fascinating aspects of Japanese DNA is its distinctive genetic markers, traits that make it stand apart not only from neighboring East Asian populations but also from the rest of the world. These markers hold the key to understanding how ancient migrations and environmental adaptations have shaped modern Japanese genetics. A major contributor to this uniqueness is the immunoglobulin G, GM, genes. These markers reveal a division between northern and southern Mongoloid populations, with the Japanese predominantly displaying traits of the northern group. One gene in particular, GMAB3ST, is highly prevalent in Japanese DNA. This gene, which originated in the Baikal region of Siberia, is a clear genetic fingerprint of the northern Mongoloid ancestry that defines much of the Japanese genetic makeup. In contrast, the southern marker, GMAV1B3, is found at much lower levels, just 7–8%, indicating minimal genetic influence from southern populations. But the uniqueness of Japanese DNA doesn't stop with GM genes. Traces of Neanderthal and Denisovan DNA also play a significant role. These ancient genes, inherited from archaic human species, are found in East Asians at higher levels than in many other populations. In Japanese DNA, certain Neanderthal-derived genes are linked to traits like susceptibility to type 2 diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, and even height. Similarly, Denisovan DNA has been found in a gene called NKX6-1, which is associated with glucose metabolism and sensitivity to certain medications. These archaic genes are remnants of interbreeding events that occurred tens of thousands of years ago, leaving their mark on modern populations. Another striking feature of Japanese genetics lies in their mitochondrial DNA, mtDNA, and Y-chromosomal DNA. These markers provide a glimpse into maternal and paternal lineages, respectively, and reveal Japan's deep ties to Northern Asia. For example, haplogroups like M10 and D1b, found in Japanese mtDNA, are shared with Siberian and Central Asian populations. Meanwhile, Y-chromosomal haplogroups like C and D link Japanese men to ancient populations in the Tibetan Plateau and Altai Mountains. These markers tell a story of migrations that began thousands of years ago, culminating in the genetic diversity we see today. What's more, Japanese DNA exhibits clear geographic patterns. For instance, Okinawans have higher levels of Jomon ancestry, reflecting their long-standing isolation from mainland populations. Meanwhile, populations in central and western Japan show stronger genetic ties to Korea and Northeast Asia, likely due to migrations during the Yayoi and Kofun periods. These regional differences underscore the complex interplay of ancestry and environment in shaping Japanese genetics. In short, the genetic markers found in Japanese DNA are more than just scientific curiosities. They are living records of history. They reveal the paths taken by ancient migrants, the challenges faced by early inhabitants, and the unique adaptations that define Japan's population today. Together, these markers make Japanese DNA not just unique, but a crucial piece of the puzzle in understanding human evolution. Japan's unique geography has played a critical role in shaping the DNA of its people. As an island nation, Japan's physical isolation from the mainland has profoundly influenced its population's genetic makeup over thousands of years. This isolation created a genetic bottleneck, allowing certain traits to become more pronounced while limiting the influx of new genetic material. The Japanese archipelago's diverse climate and terrain further contributed to this genetic distinctiveness. In the north, harsh winters favored adaptations to cold environments, while the subtropical south encouraged different evolutionary pressures. Over generations, these environmental challenges shaped genetic traits that can still be observed in modern Japanese populations. For example, certain gene variants related to skin pigmentation and metabolic processes likely emerged in response to varying levels of sunlight and dietary resources across the islands. Geographic isolation also allowed the early inhabitants of Japan, especially the Jomon people, to maintain distinct genetic traits. Even with the arrival of the Yayoi migrants, the physical separation of Japan's islands slowed the mixing of populations, preserving regional variations in genetic ancestry. Okinawa, for instance, remained a genetic stronghold for the Jomon lineage, with Jomon ancestry making up nearly 30% of the local population's DNA. When compared to neighboring populations in Korea and China, modern Japanese DNA displays clear signs of this isolation. While there are strong genetic similarities between Japanese, Koreans, and Northern Han Chinese, the Japanese exhibit unique markers and patterns that set them apart. These differences are especially evident in mitochondrial DNA, which traces maternal lineages, and Y-chromosomal DNA, which reflects paternal ancestry. Both show evidence of long-term separation from mainland populations. Japan's isolation didn't just preserve genetic traits, it also encouraged cultural and linguistic distinctiveness. The same forces that shaped Japanese genetics also contributed to the development of a unique language and culture, further distinguishing Japan from its East Asian neighbors. This combination of genetic and cultural isolation has made Japan one of the most distinctive nations in the world, both biologically and historically. But isolation alone doesn't explain the story. Environmental adaptations also played a crucial role. Diet, for instance, had a significant impact on genetic traits. The Jomon relied heavily on marine resources, which likely influenced gene variants related to fat metabolism. Meanwhile, the Yayoi's introduction of rice agriculture shaped genetic adaptations for carbohydrate digestion. These dietary shifts left lasting marks on the genetic code of the Japanese people. Climate also played a role. For example, the colder climates of northern Japan may have favored the retention of certain genetic traits that help with thermoregulation, while the subtropical south allowed for greater genetic diversity. These environmental pressures added another layer of complexity to Japanese genetics, creating a population uniquely suited to the varied landscapes of the archipelago. The interplay of isolation and environment didn't just shape Japan's past, it continues to influence the genetic makeup of its people today. Modern studies reveal regional differences within Japan that reflect this long history of separation and adaptation, offering insights into how geography and climate have shaped human evolution. Japan's genetic story is a powerful reminder of how closely our biology is tied to the places we call home. Japanese DNA isn't just a key to the past, it's also shaping the future of medicine. Modern genetic research is unlocking the secrets of how unique Japanese genetic markers influence health and disease. These findings are paving the way for breakthroughs in personalized medicine, where treatments are tailored to an individual's genetic profile. One of the most significant advancements in this field is the development of the Jewel database, the Japanese Encyclopedia of Whole Genome Exome Sequencing Library. This groundbreaking resource compiles genetic and clinical data from over 3,200 individuals across Japan, creating one of the most comprehensive genetic datasets for a non-European population. By combining DNA sequences with medical records, researchers are uncovering how specific genes impact health outcomes in Japanese populations. For instance, certain gene mutations found in Japanese DNA are associated with increased risks for chronic conditions like hypertension, kidney disease, and heart attacks. One notable example is a mutation in the PTPRD gene, which has been linked to a cluster of severe health problems. Understanding these mutations isn't just about predicting disease, it's about preventing it. By identifying individuals with high-risk genetic profiles, doctors can develop personalized strategies for managing and treating these conditions. Ancient DNA also plays a surprising role in modern health. Genes inherited from Neanderthals and Denisovans continue to influence disease susceptibility and treatment responses in Japanese populations. For example, Denisovan-derived DNA in the NKX6-1 gene has been associated with type 2 diabetes, while Neanderthal-derived genes are linked to rheumatoid arthritis and prostate cancer. These genetic remnants provide insights into how ancient interbreeding events continue to shape human biology. The implications of this research go beyond individual health. By studying genetic markers unique to the Japanese population, scientists are uncovering new pathways for drug development. For example, certain Japanese gene variants affect how individuals respond to medications, such as semaglutide, a treatment for type 2 diabetes. Understanding these differences can help pharmaceutical companies design drugs that are more effective for specific populations. Moreover, genetic research is offering clues about why some diseases are more common in Japan than in other parts of the world. Conditions like gastric cancer and certain autoimmune disorders appear to have genetic links that are more prevalent in Japanese DNA. Identifying these connections could lead to earlier detection and more effective treatments, improving health outcomes for millions of people. But the benefits of this research aren't limited to Japan. As one of the first large-scale genetic studies outside of Europe, the Jewel database provides a valuable reference for global studies of human genetics. It highlights the importance of including diverse populations in genetic research, ensuring that advances in medicine benefit everyone, not just a select few. In the future, these discoveries could revolutionize how we think about healthcare. Imagine a world where your genetic code determines the treatments you receive, ensuring they're as effective as possible. Thanks to the unique genetic makeup of the Japanese people and the dedication of researchers, that future is closer than ever. Despite the wealth of research into Japanese genetics, several myths and misconceptions persist about what makes their DNA unique. These misunderstandings often oversimplify or misrepresent the complex story of Japanese ancestry, creating a distorted view of their genetic history. One common myth is that the Japanese population is completely homogeneous, with little genetic diversity. While Japan does have less genetic variation compared to some larger populations, such as those in mainland China or Europe, the idea of total homogeneity is far from accurate. Regional differences within Japan tell a very different story. For example, people in Okinawa have much higher levels of Jomon ancestry compared to those in Honshu or Hokkaido. Similarly, populations in Western Japan show stronger genetic ties to ancient migrants from Korea and China, reflecting centuries of movement and intermarriage. Another misconception stems from the idea that the Japanese are solely descended from the Jomon and Yayoi. While these two groups are foundational, recent studies have revealed a third ancestral group tied to Northeast Asia, possibly arriving during the Kofun period. This discovery challenges the long-held dual structure model, showing that Japanese ancestry is more complex than previously thought. The tripartite origin theory suggests that Japan's genetic story is one of migration and integration, rather than a simple fusion of two groups. There's also a tendency to overstate the genetic differences between Japanese people and their East Asian neighbors. While the Japanese do exhibit unique markers, they share a significant amount of genetic similarity with Koreans and Northern Han Chinese, up to 94%, according to some studies. However, even within this similarity, certain markers, like the GMAB3ST gene, set the Japanese apart. These subtle differences highlight the importance of understanding genetic variation on a deeper level, rather than relying on broad generalizations. Another myth revolves around the Ainu and Ryukyu populations. Some believe these groups are entirely separate from the rest of the Japanese population, but the truth is more nuanced. Both the Ainu and Ryukyu islanders retain higher levels of Jomon ancestry, which distinguishes them from mainland Japanese. However, they also share genetic markers with the broader population, reflecting historical interactions and shared ancestry. This blend of uniqueness and overlap underscores the interconnectedness of all Japanese groups. Even the role of environmental adaptation in shaping Japanese genetics is often misunderstood. Traits like shorter limbs and longer torsos, common among Far Eastern populations, are sometimes attributed solely to genetic heritage. In reality, These physical characteristics are the result of both genetic and environmental factors, such as climate and diet. Understanding this interplay helps dispel simplistic notions about what defines Japanese genetics. Addressing these myths isn't just about setting the record straight, it's about appreciating the complexity of human evolution. The genetic history of the Japanese people is a testament to the resilience and adaptability of humans, shaped by migrations, environmental challenges, and cultural exchange. By moving beyond misconceptions, we gain a clearer, richer understanding of what makes Japanese DNA truly unique. The story of Japanese DNA is a remarkable journey through time, migration, and adaptation. From the ancient Jomon people, who carved out a life on the islands over 12,000 years ago, to the transformative Yayoi migrants and the recently discovered third ancestral group, the genetic tapestry of Japan reflects a rich and complex history. It's a history written in the genes of modern Japanese people, an enduring testament to the resilience and adaptability of their ancestors. Each of these groups contributed something unique. The Jomon laid the foundation with their deep genetic roots, their lineage still visible in populations like the Ainu and Ryukyu Islanders. The Yayoi brought transformative technologies, agricultural innovations, and new genetic traits, blending with the Jomon to form the backbone of the modern Japanese genome. And the third ancestral group, tied to Northeast Asia, added yet another layer of diversity, coinciding with one of Japan's most pivotal cultural periods. But this genetic story isn't just about the past, it's also about the future. As we've seen, advances in genetic research, like the Jewel database, are uncovering how these unique markers influence everything from disease risks to medical treatments. They are not only helping us understand Japanese history but are also paving the way for groundbreaking innovations in medicine, offering a glimpse into how personalized healthcare might look in the years to come. What makes Japanese DNA truly special is how it reflects the human journey as a whole. It's a story of migration and mixing, of challenges faced and adaptations made, of ancient roots and modern discoveries. It reminds us that while each population has its unique traits, we're all connected by the threads of shared history. So, why is Japanese DNA so unique? The answer lies in the incredible complexity of their genetic heritage, an intricate blend of ancient and modern, local and global. It's a reminder that the human genome is not just a blueprint of who we are, but a living record of where we've been. As researchers continue to unravel the mysteries of Japanese genetics, who knows what new insights and discoveries might emerge? If this story has sparked your curiosity, let us know in the comments below. What surprised you the most about Japanese DNA? And if you'd like to dive deeper into topics like this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more fascinating insights into the science of who we are.